All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome here to Headwaters Livestock Auction. My name is Steve Godard. I'm the general manager, and really appreciate everybody coming here for this producer profitability listening session. I'd like to give a big thank you to the Livestock Marketing Association and Montana Stock Growers Association for coming together. There's a lot of important topics, and this is an incredible time to be in the cattle industry on a lot of different levels. But looking ahead, I think that there's some issues that are very important, and so this, again, is going to be very interesting to get the information and to get everybody's feedback. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you the president of the Montana Stock Growers Association, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Grandy.
Well, thank you, and that's where we do have to start, of course, is giving the big thanks to Steve, as well as Brandon and Brittany and everybody that has anything to do with Headwaters for the work they've done for opening up this facility for us to use, and the work they've done getting the crowd out. So let's give them a hand first thing. Our first Vice President, Turk Stovall, is going to do most of the work tonight, so I can sit here and listen, but I would like to just, I guess, say a few quick things, a few introductions first. Of course, Turk is our second vice president. We have two of our Montana Stock Growers directors here this evening. Bob Sitz is here and Dusty Hahn right over here. So it's good to have them here. From the Montana livestock markets, we've got Les Graham here, so it's always good to have Les around. Do we have any, I didn't notice, but do we have any elected officials in the crowd tonight or anybody representing any of our congressional delegation? I don't think so. Yeah, Senator Daines did have a staffer at our last meeting, which we did greatly appreciate. So Turk's going to get into the background of this. I don't want to repeat everything, but just very briefly, you know, this came through the grassroots as Montana Stock Growers policy should. One of our affiliates passed some resolutions and directive and brought them to our convention, which passed, directing us to look at a few certain areas that we could try to pull different people in the industry together on and get some consensus to get a few wins on some few key issues. And we've appointed a task force. We've looked at that, and we've kind of narrowed this down a little bit, but now we're going out in the country having these meetings. And we're kind of going both directions. One, in the sense that we want all kinds of new ideas. The more new ideas, the better. But at the same time, we're also going to have to boil that down to what are the really key ones that, you know, what's a great idea that we need to do someday, but maybe we put it on the back burner as opposed to the ones that are the absolute most important, and we got to get to work on them right now. So with that, we really appreciate this turnout here tonight, because we're going to do a few other exercises that Turk will explain, but it's the input we get from you that really drives all this. So we just really look forward to hearing that. With that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Turk.
Great. Yeah, thank you, John. Again, my name's Turk Stovall. I'm from the Billings area. My family ranches south of Billings. We have a feed yard there, and then we also have a feed yard out of Shepherd. And like John said, I'm second vice president of Montana Stock Growers. And, you know, just to kind of get the stage set for the evening is this is hosted by Montana Stock Growers. This is a Montana Stock Growers event. The reason us as officers are here and talking about this is actually, we are being directed by a directive from our membership to talk about these topics and get it figured out. And the one thing that we do know is these are such big topics that are vital to our grassroots of being Montana farmers and ranchers, that we don't have all the answers. And so it's imperative that we create some sort of platform to be able to go across Montana and be able to get feedback. And so this meeting is really about all of us. And this isn't just about stock growers, isn't about whatever affiliate you're with. It's about trying to come up with some answers that really make a difference for us to make a better future for our industry. There's no question that we all know that as the generations turn, there are less younger people wanting to come into our business than there are going out. And you even look at these sale barns and they'll tell you, when we have big sales, these are dispersions. And are those cattle actually coming back into Montana? talk to Steve or talk to Blake, that might not always be yes. Just because it rains again does not mean the cows are coming back. And why is that? And that's where we're trying to really pose the question is what can we do to make it attractive for the younger generation to come back? At our last meeting, we talked about, well, what's a younger generation? Well, there was one statistic that was shared is the entry age of a young producer right now is 47 years old. And I'm 47. And what that comes down to is, things have changed. You don't go to high school and you go straight home. Maybe that operation can't handle another generation now. So maybe they had to go out and either they chose to get educated or they went and worked for somebody else and then they came home. And maybe that was just because dad wasn't ready for him to come home or just maybe they couldn't get along until he got so old that, I really need him to come home. And, there's every scenario out there. But tonight, one thing that our members that were part of a working group here about 2 or 3 years ago that was actually held by LMA really started talking about these topics. And there was ranchers in those meetings that were also Montana stock growers. And it was really a neat meeting because we sat down and we said, look, how can we be productive here? And the one way that I felt the meetings went well, and we all have a consensus, is there are some topics out there it just seems like we can't get on the same page on. That's country of origin labeling. That's the beef checkoff. That's the markets, if that's the fed cattle market or if that's the fat cattle market. We're just going to let bygones be bygones, and we're going to set that over on the side here, and we're going to do that tonight. The purpose of tonight is where can we work together? I feel like on our meeting last week at Pays, in my opinion, was almost historical. We had Bill Bullard there with RCAF. Jess Peterson was there with the U.S. Cattlemen's Association. There was other groups there. But we were all very respectful on, tonight is about trying to find out how can we work together and get to some topics that we really can get behind as an industry and go to Washington, D.C. and get one over through the hoops. As Joe Goggins was saying, he goes, we got to play some offense. We might not be all really agree on what our number one topic is, but can we all come together and agree on what our number two topic is? And let's get it over the finish line. So I really want that to be the background as we all discuss tonight. We are creating an open forum. We want people's comments. We tried to make a really good format here as far as gathering information. Ray Lee and Kenny and the team did a great job just creating some systems here to where we can really interact and for you to be able to see other producers' answers as well. And I have my computer up. I wanted to share some of the answers from the previous meetings as well, too. So when you think about producer profitability, we can all dive into a lot of different topics. And us as a board, just bringing it from the discussions from our annual convention when this was passed, we broke it down into 5 topics. And one of those is one of your handouts. So taxes, how can we get a favorable tax environment? This state tax is a big topic. And arguably, it's one of the most detrimental things for generational ranches. And we've been talking about it a long time. Can we all get together and be able to do something about that? The other topic that came up last week too is accelerated depreciation and how important that is. And that is set to be able to expire too. Governmental programs. Truthfully, Montana Stock Growers has policy to say, hey, we don't want the government in the livestock industry. But we do have programs that are supported by the government. LRP, our PRF, our pasture and range and forage rain insurance, federal crop. Are all of those programs doing us good? Are they effective? Some people would say, hey, LRP has been a really good tool for producers. Just I was talking with Ty Wells about it, on how, hey, this has been good. But can it be better? So as me that owns a feed yard and I'm trying to buy cattle off the video, I need to be able to lay those cattle off the day that I buy them. Well, right now you can't do that. So who's going to lobby to make sure that you can? And those are the things that we have to get down into to really make differences. Minimizing the barriers to entry for young and beginning livestock producers, the 47-year-olds. You know, when you ask the question of, like, what does it take to get in this business? Well, you need land and you need money. So if you have no history, is someone going to give you a loan? Are you going to be able to go get a loan for cattle and for land? You know, it gets to be kind of a tough story. So are there ways that we can try to create some either incentives, if that's with our banks, or if it's through the government or what? I don't know. And my point is here is trying to get you guys to think about it, because we need to help create some solutions. Labor. I don't know if any of you have ever gone to the coffee shop and with ranching and have ever not talked about labor. You know, and so it's a big topic. Are the H2A programs effective and relevant to ranching? You know, those were all set up for row crops, for lettuce picking. You know, does it fit the ranching community? And if not, what do we want? Mentorships. This was another topic that came up different. You know, it might be a ranch that's been around for a long time, but the kids don't want to come back, or maybe they don't have any kids. How can we incentivize them to mentor a new producer to start getting in the business? 9 times out of 10, that ranch that's been there for a long time has all the emotion and all the drive to keep that ranch whole for a whole nother generation. And it might not be their children. But how do we help promote that? And how can we facilitate that? These are just the topics to get us going. This is just the start. Are there more topics? Absolutely. If you have other topics you want to bring up tonight, we would love to hear from it. We're going to go through an exercise right now. And Kenny's going to have to help us out, right? And because normally I am not the MC, or nor is John. So Ray Lee's normally our MC, so I'm a bad MC. But we're going to go through right now where we have some questions. And so I want everybody to take out their phones. And I'm just going over my list here before we start this. So the other thing is, has everybody filled out the cards for the drawing tonight? If not, raise your hand and Ian can get something out to you. And while, did everybody fill one out? While we're looking at that, I also really would like to introduce our staff. Kenny Reese, she oversees our marketing communications. Ian, give a big wave. You'll see Ian running around. He's in membership. He's a gentleman from Tennessee, and he's fit into Montana very well. Heidi Cool is our local here, and she heads up our foundation. Dusty Hahn, he's also a local board member here, just ranching in the community too. And anybody else I forgot, John? Or Kenny? Bob. Bobby blended in with the crowd. Bob he also sits on our board, and we have a really good board. And just to plug out for that, we're always looking for great representatives of the Montana livestock industry. So please, when there's a board opening, we'd love people to put their name in the hat and go through the process. So here is the website. You can either go through this website or click on this QR code. And that's going to bring up a website, and then you have to enter that code. Now, if anybody needs any help, Kenny can come in here. I know Dusty Holland's really good at the phone. He can go around. Dusty, he's on this side if you got any needs. Dale, how you doing? You got it? Working on it? All right, tell me who hasn't got there yet. Do we need some more time? It's just loading. Okay, we're just going to go slower. Are the likes that? Okay. We're getting close. 19 people. We'll just wait a couple more minutes here. As you guys get logged in here, really the point of this exercise is just to really be able to get a feel for everybody's thoughts. And it's fun. You'll see as it comes in, everybody's answers will come on there. And then as the same answers come in, the letters or the word will get bigger and it'll be more towards the center of the. Feeling good? 25. Any more time with anybody? Don't be shy. If you need Kenny to come over, she's very helpful. Are you getting everybody on the internet?
Hello, everybody. If you need the Wi-Fi, it's Valley View Guest, and then the password is Be Our Guest, all lowercase, no spaces. Be Our Guest, all lowercase, no spaces.
How are we doing? We're gaining. We're up to 35. We'll get started here. Are we good? Gee, I can't get mine. Okay, so when you look at your phone, it should say, when you think about producer profitability, what 3 words come to mind? And there is no right or wrong answer here, so go ahead and start putting your answers in. They'll start coming up. Yeah, so we're seeing sustainability, money, future, cost, demand, forward thinking, fair markets, net profit, important, government programs, advertising, diversified, wisdom, management, health, cost control, forward thinking, family, markets, crucial. cattlemen. Yeah. So just kind of we're finishing up here. So you can, if you can see it, some of the bigger words are, competition, money, future, sustainable, generation, profit, sustainability, markets. Just to share some of the words that from our last meeting were generational, sustainability, taxes, opportunity, sustainable, net income, financial stability, markets, legacy, capital, cash flow, land, efficiency. So, we're starting to see some overlap here. Obviously, sustainability has been a pretty hot word. Profitable is a hot word. Obviously, money is the big one on our today, future and money. Has everybody got in? Did everybody get done on that one? Okay. So let's go to the next one. In 20 words or less, share with us the biggest challenge you face in your operations growth and success. Okay, we're starting to get populated here. Labor and land values, input costs, access to grass, high input costs, drought the last 3 years, the grasshoppers, yeah. On top of that, available land, finding the right people to fill the necessary roles, cost of entry for the next generation, demand for beef in the consumer world, labor, land and capital, profitability, labor, high input, reducing fixed costs and succession planning, land, knowledge, labor, stable markets, land costs, cash flow, excessive government regulation, access to capital, financial ability to expand, as well as the opportunity to expand, mostly in regard to land acquisition input costs, land costs, labor and management, internal family issues and disputes, generational transition, land values and appreciation, rising land values, drought, livable wage, government regulation, affordable land to expand, labor to help keep operating, and public land grazing, which obviously is very big in Montana. Has everybody had a chance to get their answer in? Okay, we're going to go to the next one. In the last 10 years, what tools or programs have been the most beneficial to your operations profitability? So we're seeing technology, social media, estate tax. EPDs, diversification, electronic identification tags, FSA loan programs. Equip, LRP, the internet, markets, ranching for profit, RFD tags, low stress livestock handling, social media, estate tax, life insurance, CSP, educational outreach, MSU extension research and guidance, CSP and CRP. Give a little more time here. Those 15 respondents. Anybody else? There we go. Vertical integration, IMI Global. Ranches willing to take young and inexperienced people in and teach them access to carcass information for better breeding. AI, embryo transfers, technology, drones, and GPS mapping. Very good. Now I'm going to share what we got from the last meeting on that one as well. On the last meeting, H2A, enterprise budgeting, tenancy, continuous learning, internet access, low interest, growth throughout agricultural loans, involvement in the Montana cattlemen and stock growers, LRP were the big ones. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. What do you believe will be the biggest challenge the livestock industry will face in the next 20 years? So we're seeing water, inflation, increased costs, land availability, water rights, demand, government regulations, land availability, government, public perception, land access, disease control, housing development, not enough new producers, environmentalists, encroachment of houses, housing development, I'm assuming, growing human population, packer concentration, public land grazing, cost of land, profitability, imported cattle, land use, estate taxes, next generation, consumer demands, climate change regulation, increased costs, taxes, environmental extremism, economic growth. So a few thoughts from the last meeting. The big ones there, again, was labor, taxes, government, market manipulation, consolidation, capital, government overreach, workforce, regulation, land prices, capital, government regulations, and interest rates. Okay, we'll head to the next question. So regarding success planning, share with us which category you most relate to. I got to get closer myself to read it. Okay, I am a young producer who is entering the business or transition into the operation. I do not have a succession plan. I am the process of finalizing a succession plan. I have a succession plan. I plan to exit the livestock industry, and this is not applicable to me. So far, I'm a young producer is entering the business or is in a transition into the operation. We do have one that's planning on exiting the livestock industry. Okay, so similar, almost, well, fairly similar. At the last meeting, the highest response was, I'm a young producer. The next highest at the last meeting was, I'm in the process of finding a succession plan. Next one after that would have been, I have a succession plan. And then just to comment, there was a producer there that was planning on exiting the livestock industry. So let's move to the next question, please. Is that it? Okay. Oh, was that the last? That was the last comment. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're really going to start opening up to you. And how we have this format is we're going to go through the 5 focus areas first. And we're going to limit the time a little bit just so we can kind of move the program on. But then we're going to open it up for public comment. And then you can come to the mic and, as long as we're not addressing those topics that we talked about before, we just would love to hear what you have to say. So let's start out with taxes. Did everybody get their handouts? Like we have a handout there just to give just some ideas on some tax policy. And, now we'll really open it up for anybody to come forward and just give some ideas or share comments relative to taxes. So while everyone's thinking about it, John, so it'll be in 2025, right, where we will go back and our exemptions are going to change drastically.
Correct, and that's in the handouts. But for those of you that don't know, we've had policy and we've worked at this for decades that we would like to eliminate the death tax altogether. We don't think it's a fair tax. Ideally, it should be eliminated. If you don't have the ability in Congress to get that done, you kind of have to do the next best thing. And so right now what we've had done is we have the exemptions. You're exempted from that and it's indexed for inflation. So currently it stands at a little over 13 million per individual, or so for a man and a wife together, it's a little over 26 million. Well, as you can all do the math, 26 million doesn't cover all the ranches around here by a long shot, but it's a pretty good chunk of change. It covers some of them. Along with that, you've got things Turk earlier mentioned, like bonus depreciation, Section 179 depreciation. But when you pass to a charity or a generational transfer, getting that stepped up basis, which is incredibly important. A lot of that goes away on January 1st of 2026 if we don't do something about it, which requires Congress to act, which is an issue. So we need to know what people's thoughts are on that and what are our priorities, what do we need most to maintain, because right now if nothing's done, those exemptions will revert back to $5 million. And of course, worst case scenario is that Congress acts and actually goes the other direction and puts those exemptions at 2 or 3 million, in which case it not only covers every ranch represented here, but it covers pretty much every Main Street business in every town around here. So that's kind of the gist of that. We're also looking at some other tax issues such as state property tax issues, but I didn't come here to talk. I'd sure like to hear comments from you folks.
Hi, my name's Dale Venhuisen, live at Manhattan, own Churchill Cattle Company. So I think the stepped up basis is extremely important to our industry. It is so important if you want to go from one generation to the next. And then that exemption, is as high as we could get it. If it possibly stay where it's at, we all know our government's severely short of money. We also know they can't agree on whether the sun's shining today or not, so getting them to do something is like pulling teeth. But hopefully that people from the ag states could come around that. And I think that most of our people understand this. Not everybody in every state, of course, it's in Congress understands this issue with agriculture, but I think a lot of people do. But those would be two really important things that we as an industry need to work on.
Thanks, Dale. Anybody else? John, it might not hurt just to mention just a little bit of, should we call it the effort or discussion on Montana's changing. And, where you could arguably, we're not fighting over the neighbor's ranch to buy it to produce. It's going for hunting, or it might be going for something recreational. And should the classification of that land be reconsidered? And could we do something with the tax code to incentivize our land in Montana to stay in agricultural production? And, it's, come on up, Ray. But the one thing that is just a constant repeating message is there's just getting to be less land. And we're fighting over less. And it's not only making it harder for us to operate or expand or find land or graze, but it comes to a point, this even could be a national security issue. And who is going to produce and feed this country in the future? Go ahead, Ray.
That's the reason I'm here. Because I'm like a lot of you. I'm worried about where our next generation's food's going to come.
And just so Kenny doesn't get upset with me, you have to state your name.
Ray Markser, from down by Sheridan, Twin Bridges. I used to be a director on the stock growers. But on the tax issue, I've been in the same ballpark as far as getting rid of the estate tax forever. But one of the things that we've experienced, we tried to do some succession planning for us and estate planning, and we've got it pretty well done and had it done. Now they're changing the rules. They're stepped up. The basis deal has changed to where the advantage of having a plan in place for your next generation, it all changes. And so it's difficult to have a successful plan when the game keeps changing.
Thank you, Ray. Anybody else?
Yeah, boy, that's a great point too. You know, predictability, because I know a lot of people have been that. You know, how much money can be spent on attorneys and accountants, because you do this and then they change the tax laws and you start all over again. But to what Turk was referring to and I referenced earlier is, as all you know, land use is changing, and we're not going to get into the water too much, but that's a whole other issue. But one of the things we've looked at for some time, but we absolutely, we can identify the problem, we don't have the answer. And that's changing. Right now, agricultural land in the state of Montana for property tax purposes is the definition of it, you know, production of, what is it, $500 or something. Yeah, 1,500. Yeah. It doesn't take much to, well, that's one steer calf. If you got one cow out back and raise the calf, you meet the definition. With people buying small acreages and building fancy houses, but maybe, you know, you can run a couple cows or horse out back, or maybe you're over on the flathead and you have cherry trees or something, or with people buying bigger operations but just doing more hunting, letting the elk more take over them. Should this meet the definition of agricultural land, or do we need another category, whether you call it a recreational land category? Again, we don't know the answers, but this is something we've looked at. We talked about it a lot in the last legislative session, and there were actually about 4 bills that came forward, all of which were, you know, kind of brought forward at the last minute, and all of which were kind of trying to go the right direction, but weren't well thought through yet, had flaws. You know, I've talked about this at least twice with the governor, and he kept saying, I support you, I support where you're going, but we need to think this thing through, we need a plan. So we've done that. There is the Department of Revenue put together a task force. John Lewis represents the stock growers on that task force. They've met at least once so far, if not more, and they're looking at just these type of issues. In addition, the governor has another committee working just strictly on property tax, looking more at the urban housing issue, you know, the property taxes on housing. And so, like anything else, that's the hard part, is because, you know, we as ranchers want to pay less property tax, and guess what? The homeowner in town does too. So you got to balance that somewhere. But we think there's a real inequity here, if you will, that, you know, should some of these properties be taxed at an ag classification? But how do you fix that issue? We're looking for guidance, and John Lewis is sitting on that task force, and he would sure like some guidance.
Be sure and introduce yourself and everything,
Can I
please.
turn around?
Oh, yeah.
Hi, I'm Leah Lewis. My dad, Gene Compton, is here tonight. We have a ranch in the Boulder Valley. For all young people starting out in your succession journey, we've been working at front since 2016, and I don't feel like we're 100%, but we're getting there. The thing I found most frustrating, and maybe it's something as an industry we could work on, was land appraisals and the people that do them. There's very few. They're very expensive. They're very far out there. If you want to try to do gifting or any of that sort of stuff, it makes it very cumbersome to do those basic estate planning things. So if we could work on that, I think that would help people with their succession planning. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anybody else? So just as a reminder, you know, as you know, we hope that we're stimulating some thought and some ideas. And if we can't get it all talked about today, if you go onto the website, Kenny put a place where you can continually put on some comments. And so you just go to mtbeef.org in the Producer Profitability Initiative area, and then there's a a comment period too. And I sure, and there's, if your neighbors couldn't make it or any others wanted to sure comment on this, we're really looking for some feedback. So we'll wrap up the tax part and we'll move to our next topic. And that's on the government programs. And and I'll just, we'll just start talking about the LRP right out of the gate here. I mean, it's one thing that's been interesting. Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt, Turk, because the last meeting at Billings, we talked about LRP and LRP and LRP, and after the meeting, somebody came up to me, or to us, that we were meeting afterwards, says, well, during the meeting, I got 5 different texts asking me what the heck is LRP. So, again, it's explained in some of the handouts if you got them, but that's the RMA's, Government Risk Management Agency's Livestock Risk Protection Program.
And that's always a good thing, right? You're coming to even learn what is there. Maybe you never knew in the first place. And Joe Cavanagh came up and gave just a kind of good overview on it and how it's been used. And maybe I'm going to put Ty on the spot. And Ty, could you just maybe just give some examples of how it's used?
I'm probably the wrong one to stand up here, but Ty Wells, Montana Livestock Ag Credit, and I know there's what 3 other bankers in the room that could probably say the same thing that I am right now, but hopefully I'll represent all of us. But honestly, LRP's been around for a long time and goes back probably 15 years ago. They changed it probably 2 or 3 years ago, changed how they calculated the formula, made it a lot more friendly to agricultural producers. The biggest thing I think I see with it for all of our customers, and particularly as we get up into this young producers who are able to essentially hedge the ability to make their payments, basically their cash flow. So we're seeing a lot on cow-calf operations. I mean, you can insure cattle before they're calves, before they're born. We do have some people that do that, but actually really most of them, the majority of them, use it later on when the calves are on the ground. It allows them basically in May to be able to put some price stability basically in their marketing plans. It basically puts a floor in it at a reasonable cost. The other nice thing about it is there's no money up front. You don't have to pay your premiums until the back end, till the contract actually expires. So the nice thing from a lending standpoint for anybody, whether it's a young producer or an older, I mean, in May, we have a lot of these guys, May, June, we already know what their bottom line is going to be on it. So it gives us a lot more comfort when people come to us in that regards. Another thing that's been big in the last couple of years, I mean, it seems like we're getting more and more stocker operators in the state, especially some of these younger people that can't afford to maybe go out and buy like high dollar bred cattle. Well, one thing that was very nice is we had a lot of young people go out and buy grass cattle last fall, and they were able to basically hedge those cattle right away, or maybe they left it open for a little while, but now with some opportunity, they've already locked them in. And I mean, I'm seeing some of these guys locking $300 profit, and they're young guys. And so that's nice. And from a lending standpoint, it just makes it that much better for a banker to be able to say, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. You can put together a better marketing plan because of it. But I guess that's really what, I don't know if anybody else has anything more to say on it from the lending standpoint. But it's really become a really good tool for people to use, especially when you're not, I mean, I'll compare it, it's similar to an option in a lot of respects. The one thing it is not is it's not playing in the futures market. You don't have margin call risks, which from a lending standpoint is very, very nice for us. So anyway, I guess that's about it, Turk, if I missed anything.
Thank you, Ty. I just wanted to add in here too. So in the resolutions that were passed by members of stock growers, I just wanted to read it and just to let you know at least how we've been directed at this point. And so I want either to get some reactions or some further thought there. But So therefore be it resolved, MSGA supports the implementation of one or more government-backed guaranteed payments on grazing land for livestock production for beginning farmers and ranchers. That includes new programs or revisions to existing programs, such as possible changes to LRP, such as increased subsidy to make it more affordable, or changes to allow access to a much earlier in the calendar year by livestock producers. Increased subsidy, and then also that's for LRP, and then also this is to talk about CRP, and changes to allow access to much earlier in the calendar to graze much earlier in the calendar year for livestock producers, CRP, and then take advantage of the higher feed quality in times of distress. Second bullet point: a measure of equity between the opportunity between livestock producers and crop producers. And the last one is the consideration within new and existing programs, both simple and designed to the extent possible to support young livestock producers. So much of, I want to say, where we've been with LRP, John, right, is the focus on the potential of increasing the subsidy of the LRP, as well as being able to put that LRP on, especially if we're buying a forward contract, to be able to do it the day that we agree that we're going to buy those cattle. The classic one's the video. So if I'm sitting there at the video and I buy this lot of calves, I should be able to lay those calves off right that same day on that market. And right now you can't do that. Any thoughts or anything else? Some other comments relative to the government programs. There are beginning producer support through FSA. I want to say those programs you can borrow up to either $500,000 or $600,000. Heather, do you want to come down and maybe talk about that just real quick? That's a lot easier than me trying to guess.
Heather Malcolm with Bank of the Rockies in Livingston. On the FSA program, the direct loan limit for buying farmland is $600,000. There's two different programs where you can partner with a bank. That purchase price on that is $1,750,000 right now, and then that index is up every 3% every year. FSA does $600,000 and a bank does the rest of the money. So there's 3 different programs that you can use with FSA for loan programs.
Thank you.
I can't help it. I got to go back to the old school thinking about government being involved in our business. And I understand the value of some of these tools, but if I felt like I needed to rely on government programs to be profitable, it ain't going to happen. Look at the subsidized programs that the government's done. I don't care whether it's agriculture, whether it's wind, whether it's ethanol. They flop, and they're not sustainable. Now, I had the opportunity to run a very large ranch for a large corporation for a lot of years. So we were profitable every year. But one of the good things about being a big corporation as they were, didn't have the opportunity to participate in any government programs. And so the things that we did to run that thing profitably made sense. It didn't rely on some program to help us. And I really am concerned about our industry going forward being dependent on our government subsidies to stay in business. You young folks, I know it's hard to get started, but if you are using government programs in your planning and strategy to stay in business, you're not going to be in business very long. The other thing that I would share with you, I'm thinking about big picture, that when I came, it's about producer profitability, and I'm all over that thing. But the reality of it, as we looked at some of that first couple slides, generational transfer was big. I see that as being a real problem in our industry, and it's in crisis mode as far as I'm concerned right now. And we're talking here on the same sheet or answers. The H2 program is there, but that's a short-term deal. H2 is there, as I look at it, as an opportunity to take care of a short-term deal, but it's also a conflict in developing that next generation. It's taking the place of us, our older generation, mentoring and getting started the new next generation. It really is. And so, you know, there's a lot of things that don't add up. They're antagonistic, just like some traits in cattle. So I just would caution you again. I'm not banking on the government for agricultural being in business.
Thanks, Ray. Anything else? Yeah, thank you.
Well, I apologize. I have a cold. Usually I sound worse than this. Ray, I appreciate what you said. But, you know, when we're talking taxes, that's a government program. We're paying the government. And so what we consider a subsidy, it's actually, we're not in a free market system, regardless of what we'd like to think. If you look at the controls that come from other countries, we're not a free market. We've got all these other pressures on us. And it's specifically in Montana and in southwest Montana where you folks operate. You know that you have so much more than just what you used to have. You have the wolves here now. A lot of us are dealing with grizzly bears. And then we have that bigger elephant, which is the development and the big money coming in. Please, so I'm the project director for the Madison Valley Ranchland Group. My leg's shaking. And we've worked really hard to try to get some money to help ranching and ag stay sustainable in this valley and in this area. We work the whole Madison. We're not Iowa. We're not Colorado. We have our own issues. But if we give up on our ranching and our ag, it's a disservice to that open space and to all of us who came here because that's what we love. And we can make money at it. But please, there's some excellent money that just came out through NRCS. Some of it is through RCPP, and I'm terrible with acronyms. So we have that, and then we have some, and the RCPP is administered through NRCS. And then we also got some America the Beautiful Challenge money. We got 2 big pots of money that came into Montana for the next 5 years, and I believe it's around $11 million, and it is for agriculture. So do your research, find out what's available out there. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, Linda Owens at Madison Valley Ranchland Group. But we have issues and challenges that a lot of other ranchers don't have, even in other parts of the state. Take advantage of those funds that help us stay in operation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, no, those are really good perspectives. I mean, it's almost like, hey, we want the government involved, but we don't want the government involved. And that has been almost kind of the yin and the yang, right? And so if you're a young guy and you're trying to get involved, well, hey, I need some help somewhere. And so I don't know what the answer is, and that's what we're trying to figure out. You know, is $600,000 enough to get going? Is the question. You know, or maybe is it even being utilized? And is that because maybe people aren't aware of it, or it's just because it's just not useful, right? Or I don't know. But that's what we got to get to. and just talk that out a little bit. You know, it kind of bleeds into our next topic of just barriers of entry for younger producers or new producers. But, there's also this concept of discussion and I know we have some lenders in the room, but is it easier for me to get going farming because of there's government support programs versus if I wanted to go buy 100 bred heifers and go lease somewhere? I don't know that answer, but it seems like there's a perception that the farming community potentially has more tools and government support that's keeping that going. Now, is that good? I don't know. But our topic is to make sure that this ranch land stays in ranch hands. And I don't have the solution there. And so if there's any thoughts on that, we would love to hear some feedback. We did have a younger producer talk last week on, that he felt that it's way easier for him to go and farm a piece of ground than to go and lease a piece of ground and put some cows out on it. And, that was his experience. So how do we help that? Any other comments on? Yep, Dale.
Well, I guess I can certainly see Ray's point about government programs, but and I don't use the LRP, but one thing, we are kind of at the mercy of the markets. Like when all summer video sales were terrific. Cattle was selling really well. You get to wherever, October, November, and December, and all of a sudden that same calf or cow or bred heifer has a whole lot less value than it had three or 4 months ago. And if there's some ways to, and why that happened, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some people that know, and maybe we're kind of back to where we were. But if you can even out some of those rough spots, in agriculture, you don't sell every day. You sell once, twice a year. I don't know, maybe more than that. But it's not like it's not like a feeder that markets cattle every day to the packers. We're different in that in Montana, and I think the other thing also, if there's some help for young producers on financing, it's like the Equip program. Our ranch did not take part of that, but I drove by a whole bunch of center pivots to get here tonight. That Equip paid a big part of that, and that whether you want to feed hay or you don't want to feed hay, I mean, it's free country. You can do whatever you want. But if you have water and you have access to water and you've got equipment, you can make your own hay, make your own grass. You take the rough spots out. And if there's some way that we can figure out how to do that, I think the worst thing in the world is a person's going to market their cattle and it's either terrible weather to where the calves shrink or you got a bad storm or the market dropped really bad 2 weeks ago. Those kind of things. If we as an industry can even out some of those rough spots, I think it will really help young producers in particular, but all of us.
Thank you, Dale. Anybody else? We'll just kind of keep going here, and I'd like to get into this barriers of entry. And typically, the two topics that come into barriers of entry is access to land and access to money. And there's probably more than that, but that would sure be the two big ones. And how do we help young producers get access to those two topics? And not to keep putting the lenders on the line, but what do they need, right? I mean, I was fortunate. I went and bought my own cows, but my dad co-signed the loan. That's just, I don't know how else you do it. And what happens if you don't have somebody that's willing to do that? Or what do they need? Is it an FSA program and they just start out, smaller, which is understandable. We all started out smaller. Any thoughts on that? Or is there we have a lot of younger people in the crowd. What do you need? What would be helpful for you to get in business? How can we make this an attractive profession for you to want to be in beef cattle production for your career? What is that? What a great program. Thank you for sharing what you guys are doing. I didn't know that. And, I think there's a lot of programs out there I don't even know if a lot of us even know. And so that's our point, is to share notes. And can I put any of you young guys or gals on the line? Come on up. What do we need to do?
I'm Asha Malcolm.
Talk a little bit more in there, Mike. There, yeah. Thank you.
I'm Asha Malcolm. My family ranches down in Livingston, so I don't necessarily have a barrier when it comes to cattle. Range money. I guess barriers in access to land. It also seems like there's a lot of barriers in public perception towards ranching that maybe bar our ability to access government programs that are a little lower risk for us.
My name's McLean Payne. I'm from Paradise Valley. I would say probably one of the biggest restrictions on getting kind of started into the ranching thing is realizing that there is a way to make money. In college, it's all like, oh, there's so many negative things going on in ag right now, and you might not be able to make a profit at it. It's really hard. You're worried about water, and your resources are getting taken away, and there's the government regulations and everything's tightening on you. Well, everybody else is making it right now, kind of. So there is hope for the ag industry, and the demand for beef continues to rise and going up. So there is always going to be money in it. I mean, everybody's not going to wake up one day and say that they don't want a steak. So at the end of the day, figuring out where to find these resources of money, whether it's a government program or some other program, or figuring out what works for your operation and how you're going to run it in order to make it profitable.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else? It's really nice just to get a younger person's perspective. Like, hey, what are you facing? And it's never better than from the direct horse's mouth. If this is something you really want to do, what's holding you up? And why can't you get there? Or what have you been facing? And a lot of it's just sharing and letting us all know, what are your barriers? We're giving our best guess, but it's, Ian did a great job. Ian Glennie is the one who shared last week too, so we sure would love to hear some more.
My name is Albert Koenig. I live just up the road here in Three Forks, and I guess just to share a little bit about my experience dipping my toe into some of the program stuff, and just from my perspective, what I think would really move the needle to make it so that we as the younger generation either could do this deal or continue to kind of sit on the sidelines. And I think there's a lot of factors at play, of course. I dang sure appreciate what McLean had to say. I think that controlling your costs and being an efficient and a prudent and a a shrewd operator is absolutely paramount here. I don't think that any of us need to hear that from me, but one thing that I worry about as far as obviously this year and the kind of past couple years have been awesome in the commercial side and the registered side and whatnot. I think everybody's gotten to kind of have their piece, and it's pretty good, but I think that as we look over the horizon in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we're all pretty well aware of what the cycle looks like. You know, every 10 years we kind of get a good chance to make some money, and hopefully you pay your notes and kind of get buckled in and whatnot and ready for the next 6, 7, 8 years of kind of difficulty and hard decisions and whatnot. And I think that right now we're feeling good, but we've got, my operating note is at 11% interest right now, and in any of these, even with programs and whatnot, looking into FSA help and everything, 600 grand doesn't go very far in Gallatin County, in Broadwater County, in Madison County, in Marr County, any county within 4 or 5 hours of here. You're not going to get too far. I would love to be able to run cattle as a job and not just as a passion. I've dumped way more money and time and effort into it than I would have buying a boat and going to the lake every weekend, but it's what I think that we can do it if we can. It can be done if you do it right. I think that it's not for lack of effort and trying and being, you know, creative. I've got all kinds of side businesses, and I'm in the trucking business, and we've got a landscaping business and whatnot, but not coming from a generational operation, it just is dang near impossible to make it pencil between this interest and the input costs. I've run the numbers every single way, frontwards, backwards, and out whatever orifice of your choice, and it's just dang near impossible to make it pencil and purchase anything that I'm gonna actually see any profit in it in my lifetime, pretty much. So, I mean, I'm not married. I don't have any plans for, you know, next generations or anything like that. But to actually pay off what this land is going to cost us and pay the interest on it, it just doesn't pencil and doesn't make sense. So I think that we need to have some type of guarantees on these interest rates would make a big difference for me. And I guess if anybody else could speak to that, who maybe is looking at starting from square one or whatever. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to go to Oklahoma or Kansas or someplace where Amarillo, Texas is beautiful this time of year. So maybe that's what's in the cards for all of us. And I like to deliver bulls to those places, but about 3 or 4 days is enough of that for me. And I've grown up here and I'd love to stay here, but I just am more and more afraid that I'm not going to be able to do it, doing the same thing that we've been doing for, 50, 100, 200 years here in Montana. So I'm all ears for a creative solution, but it's tough.
Thank you. Anyone else? That's been, the financing part has come up so many times with younger producers, and I don't know, I don't have a suggestion, Ty. I don't have enough money to loan out, so I would love that.
Maybe get on a soapbox here, but I'm going to turn around and point the finger back the other generation. But I'm also a producer too. But I can tell you one thing. People want to talk about the finance end and how tough it is to go get a loan, especially when you have nothing to start off with. But I can tell you one thing. The young guys that come to us that are able to start in this business, it's one word, and that's opportunity. And that doesn't start with the bank. That starts with somebody in your county, somebody taking you under the wing, giving you just a little bit of shot, whether it be mentoring or a lease or something like that that's favorable to you. That's really, sorry, I'm kind of redirecting from the finance, but honest to God, and I bet you we can all attest to that. Every one of these young people that are making a go at it right now is because somebody gave them an opportunity. It doesn't matter whether it's their dad, their uncle, their neighbor, the old guy down the road, but somehow, if in the way I look at it is some way we have to incentivize you guys who are thinking about getting out of the business to maybe look at that rather than looking at either selling your place. Or it's kind of funny. I mean, how many neighbors, and I'm not up here to point fingers or anything, but at the end of the day, it seems like a lot of these leases still go to the highest paid or the highest person that's going to pay the most amount of money for them. So honestly, on the young end of it, all I got to say is, I mean, it takes an opportunity and it will work.
So Ty, great segue. Let's just talk about mentorship there. So virtually, what you're saying is we need to, even just as ourselves or neighbors, it's really not about leasing to the highest bidder. It's about helping someone get going. And how do we encourage that? You know, I mean, it's kind of one of those deals. I would say they either have it or they don't. But how can we encourage someone that maybe doesn't? And what else would be a good mentorship? It's one that's given the opportunity, but what else should we be shooting for? Like I'm myself, I'm big on relationships because I can think through my career where I've had relationships with people and we've earned trust from some other thing. It might not have been cows, but then it led into, oh, well, you can, I mean, the only person that ever co-signed for me is my father, but I mean, there's been other ranches out there that for sure at least gave me a buy, so to speak. And we need to encourage that, or at least suggest that. Anything else relative to mentorships? Huge. Yeah, please.
Hi, everybody. My name's Kay Ann Miller, and my family ranched in Wyoming and Montana for a long time. And with regard to mentorships, I think one of the things that was a big challenge for the family is that there was a generation for whom the land was their retirement. And so if you are asking that person or couple not to cash out, then there has to be a way to help people live at an old age, right? And, you know, whether a mentor is able to do that or not is probably closer to it because care is expensive. And so I wonder if it's possible to think about some way to support the people that we're asking to do the mentorship, especially if their capital is tied up.
Great, thank you. Bob?
We do an internship on the ranch. We take anywhere from 4 to 6 kids a year between both operations. These kids have gone on, and some of them run ranches. I've put kids on ag radio, also chemical engineering for agriculture. But a lot of these kids have gone on and done all kinds of different things. They might not all be on the land, but they've gone on and done lots of different things, and we've had great kids.
Great.
One of the things that I experienced throughout my career and managed the ranch there, we actually switched from the traditional command-based management style of operating our ranch, which most of us are in, most of us grew up in, to more of a market, what we called it market-based management. But what I found, having lived what you young people are Of course, it's been a long time ago now, but we looked for opportunity. It wasn't just a paycheck. At times, right to start with, we needed to learn skills and get some experience. But then what kept people there in our employ was opportunity. Opportunity to make decisions, opportunity to be held, to have responsibility, opportunity to be held accountable for those decisions. And that was far more important than their wage. As long as they were being taken care of right, that's what kept people there. But part of our system that we developed to do that, it really involved our what we called RR&Es. We had written roles, responsibilities, and expectations for every employee, and that was a good experience for us to develop those. But what that does, in a few words, what it says is you got a development plan for that person, and I liken our employees or young people in the ranching business, the employees or your young people, to a ranch horse. Same kind of thing. If you think about it, you select that person or you select that horse, and then if you don't have a good development program for them, they just kind of are there. And they're not there for very long, generally, because they're not happy, they're not being challenged, they don't have that opportunity, and they're not growing. They're doing the work of an H2 worker. But once you put that plan in place, a development plan, it's just like with a horse. You have a development plan that you've got set up for it. Then you've got some kind of a roadmap, and you've got they have something invested in it, and you have something invested in it. And that's, to me, that's the crisis that agriculture is in right now, is we've done a very poor job. Our generation has done a very poor job of developing the next generation. We've been busy about surviving, and it's been our turn to be in control and to be making those decisions. And it's hard. It's a human nature deal. Once you get that opportunity to be the decision maker, it's hard to turn loose. But we genuinely need to. The other thing that I would add here, I'm a studier of human nature and also business. If you look back since the start of the country, our civilization here, in especially southwest Montana, regardless of the business that it is, whether it's agriculture or whether it's mining or any generational business that's kind of a family business, most of them at most last 70 years. Most family operations last about 70 years, and then for whatever reason it is, that final generation, they're out. The other thing that when we talk about producer profitability, this really relates to you young people, we need to understand our business and agriculture. That ranching, like we think, we bunch them all together, and you got to own land, and you got to and livestock in order to run an operation. They're two separate deals, and so the opportunity for young people to get in is most likely in being able to lease ground to run on, to get started, and that's really tough. Anybody in the room knows, if you go try and find summer grass, and there's some of us that are expecting there's a few people in the country in southwest Montana, we're waiting for them to die so there's more opportunity for grass for young people, because they gobble it up. They're aggressive. They know how to make money. So I'll sit down.
Thanks, Ray. So Bob and Ray kind of brought up just some good thoughts relative to developing our producers, the internship program, and there was a question for you, Bob, that we'll get to here in a minute. But in the world of labor, it seems like we all have challenges with labor. If it's from the sale barn, or if it's from a feed yard, or it's from a ranch, we're all talking about labor. And it seems like we have been trying to develop the next generation, but the next generation has to want to be developed. And not everybody wants that. And that might be just, I might even have to be careful so I don't get onto my soapbox, but you know, we're just dealing with a new generation here, and there's new wants and needs and demands, actually. You know, we've had to change our bunkhouse. The bunkhouse is not 1970 or 1980 anymore. You know, there's got to be some new things in there it's expected. It's not like thank you. It's like, I am not going to live in that unless you do X, Y, Z. And you better do X, Y, Z if you want to put some men in there. One thing we've also started to do is hire women. And that, for sure, in my dad's era, that was just not even thought about. So now, from a housing standpoint, we've had to change how we house people. And I don't want to say we were progressive for that. It just wound up we had no choice. And one thing that we've also have had no choice, especially with the feed yards, is working with H2A. And you know, you get much stock around you, and you get much. We're not going to go brand a 2 or 100 or 200 calves. We're going to buy 500 calves. And it's not going to be a party after that. You're going to change horses, and you're going to start gathering for the next day. Well, everyone's going to tell you they want to be a cowboy. But what do you say? About day 3, Ray, you're going to find out who really wants to be a cowboy. Right, Dusty? And that's just the reality of it. And that's just our new world. And so I want to say some of us, I don't know what else to do. I mean, we've gone to H2As. So we have 11 South Africans, and we have 4 TN visa guys from Mexico. So they have a veterinary degree in Mexico, and which is not recognized in the United States, but they're really good at animal health. And they are on our health crew at the feed yard in Shepherd. And they're good guys, and they are all about it. And so I'm telling you, it's not that we don't want to be there. That is not the least cost labor. You know, I can hire other guys cheaper, but it just doesn't seem like they have the drive. It doesn't seem like they want to do what you want to do that day. And that's tough. I mean, we need help. We need help developing the American next generation of farm and ranch workers. You know, and again, maybe I have a bias too, and because I mean, I would consider myself more of a rancher than a farmer, even though we have a lot of farming. But you don't have to ask too many people to get in your $400,000 tractor with air conditioning and a little cubby refrigerator. You know, it seems like there's some people that are really okay with that. Now, if it's a little blizzardy outside and we need to ride pens, and I also need you to make sure that the waters work and they're not frozen, it seems like there's not that many people that are that excited to do that more than one day. So I don't know what else to do. And so this labor thing's real. And, you know, as far as the H2A programs, I want to say for sure the feed yard industry has been moving more to it, and you're starting to see it more in the ranching world. And I personally don't like any bit of it. I mean, I'm a red, white, and blue guy, but I don't know what else to do as a owner of several agricultural companies. And so, do these programs work? Sure, they work, but could they be better for the livestock industry? We think so. And so, just in the name of labor, does anybody have any thoughts or suggestions or solutions or some things that we need to consider, or there are some other things that you guys are faced with that we need to be aware out to try to address as well?
I've had an H2A, a couple of guys for H2A for 17 years. Great people. We couldn't do it without them. They're consistent. They're just like family. In the Madison Valley, with everything growing in Bozeman, we need some guys that are consistent, can take care of equipment and that, and we've had to go to that on a couple situations. On the H2A program, one of the biggest problems I see, and I see this with people that need calving help, is one of the problems is with the government is these people are not getting here on time. They're getting later and later, and you're under a contract basically, and on these contracts they're supposed to be here this day and go out this day, and it's a 6-month deal, at least for us. And I don't know, with whatever happens with the government, it always is. I know some people that have a lot of cattle and they're a month late getting their H2A workers, and that really puts a burden on not only the health of the cattle, but the wear and tear of the family.
Anybody else?
I'm Chris Redmond. I'm with Ag West, and I'm the new guy around. Just coming at this from a little bit different perspective. I've worked for ranches for the last 25 years, and I've been out there in the blizzards day in and day out, been out in the heat, and done it all, and loved what I've done a lot. And it's dang hard when you don't have any kind of a land base, any kind of support, any kind of mentorship. And when you're working all those long hours for somebody and you'll never have any stake in their operation. You're not building it for yourself. And so it's really hard for a lot of these guys to put in all that effort year in and year out with nothing at the end of the day. And so, I think we wonder why people don't want to come back to ranches. I mean, there's a lot of that. It's hard, and there's no reward at the end of the day. And so finding those people that are actually willing to give you that opportunity, like you were talking about, it's pretty few and far between. And so if you can't give that opportunity, if it's your family ranch and you need the help to make it work, then you have to realize that you need to treat your people differently. They look at these big corporations and they're offering, all these great benefits, time off and cruises that they can take their families on. Maybe think about some different opportunities, ways to reward your employees to make them want to do the things that you're doing. So.
Great point. Thank you. Any other comments? So we're going to move into what it's virtually an open mic. And so if there's something that we missed, or you really would like to share some thoughts, I really hope we've covered some ground here. And the exercises, I appreciate everybody participating in that. And what we're doing is we're continuing to compile this. And we're really trying to get some sort of consortium of everybody's thoughts. And we're really trying to get to what are the most important items that we need to, as an industry, get behind and really try to get it across the finish line. And there's going to be a lot of them. But at some point, we're going to have to pick a few to go to our elected officials and saying, hey, this has to happen now. We don't have any more time. The state tax is a big deal. And we've been debating that for many years, and we need to get it to where it's not a concern anymore. Just like the goalpost keeps getting changed, right? We get all organized and all of a sudden, You know, before my dad died, we kind of joked around when we put our estate plan together. Well, it'd be a lot better if you passed away on these years than if you lived on this year. I mean, you're going to have to lighten up the discussion at some point. I mean, it's just what we got to deal with. And so please, if anybody, any comments?
I'm Ed Brainerd. I live up here at Manhattan, and we have a ranching operation. And I'm the third generation, and my great-great-great-grandkids are the sixth generation. And this estate deal is probably the most serious thing I see facing the ranching business today. Because if we keep going with these land prices, especially here in Gallatin County and around, there's no way in hell can you pass this land on. We've been working on this for about 10 or 12 years and think we have a plan. But then if they do away with this 25 or 6 or 7, $8 million equity there on these taxes, it'll kill you. There's no way you can do it. And I think that is the biggest. I think estate taxes is the biggest thing facing our ranch and agriculture community that there is.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name's Hannah Bill. I'm actually the office manager here at Headwaters. The thing that's kind of in my head right now is very much that the answer is not always going to look, maybe the answer that you're looking for might not be in the package that you want it to be in. I looked pretty dang hard for a cow-calf position for quite some time coming out of college, and I time and time again came up short, would interview for it, and I wasn't the right fit. I was actually blessed to have an opportunity to run, as an operations manager, to run a backgrounding and finished cattle operation over in northeastern Oregon. And that was really an opportunity, like we were talking about earlier, to learn a heck of a lot and really grow. I didn't think I'd ever have a passion for the feedlot industry, and I was certainly mistaken in that. The other thing I wanted to touch on was the labor, and we hired a lot of guys with TN visas, similar as to what you were explaining earlier. And aside from some Spanish classes when I was about this tall, I have spoke English my entire life, and there was a period of time where I didn't have a single guy that worked for me that spoke a lick of English, and so it doesn't always take, it's not always going to be, as much as I wanted to hire the local guys to be riding pens, it just wasn't, the commitment wasn't there, and we're kind of striking out in that sense. So both for, I would say, on the young side of things, kind of look for the opportunity that you weren't necessarily wanting right out of the gate, and then for some of the more seasoned folks, labor is going to be something that it's going to be a looking outside the box as well as some other things. But
Great, thank you very much. Anybody else? Great, come on down, thank you.
I'm Kyle McMurray, and I don't have, what I have to say isn't near as important as what's all been said today, but I'm running for House District 77, which is Manhattan North through towns and all of Broadwater County. I grew up in the farm and ranch world. My father, Russ McMurray, was at Camp Implement for 65 years. And he also ran a little accounting business on the side, and most of his clients were farmers and ranchers. So I grew up with our family's friends being farmers and ranchers. I have a real loyalty to you guys, protecting the family farm and ranch. And, you know, politicians can say that, but I sincerely mean it. And so anyway, I'm running for House District 77. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, please come on.
Hey everybody, my name is Ben Bennett. I'm a veterinarian over in Wilsall, and I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about how important mentoring was for me. When I came, we're in the vet profession, we're facing a lot of the same issues. I guess the average large animal vet now is over 55 years old, and so young guys like me and Ross up here and Jonathan, who's a vet student with us right now, are facing the problem of how are we going to continue to serve all the producers of this country with much fewer of us. And I started our clinic right out of vet school in 2018, and I not to toot my own horn, but I was a kid who had a lot of go, but I didn't have anybody to call on if I had questions. And I'm sure many of you guys know Bruce Sorensen, but he was a guy who, luckily I got connected with him. My brother's wife's dad is his pastor. And then I used to work for Tom Lane, and Tom Lane ran into him at one point and said, hey, I got this young kid who wants to come up, but he just needs somebody who, if he's having problems with a C-section, he can call. And I've got a network of people behind me from vet school and stuff who I can call with more, for less hands-off or more hands-off kinds of questions, because I went to vet school at Kansas State. So they're still in Kansas, and so I can call them for those kinds of questions. But as far as somebody to come and just help me with the hands-on side of things, and Bruce was that guy. And 2 a.m. he came out and helped me with a C-section. There was a bunch of heifers that were supposed to be AI bred, but it turns out they weren't AI bred, and they were bred to some bull the guy found at the sale barn, I think. And so we were cutting a bunch out, and I was struggling with it, to say the least. And it was I wasn't even 6 months out of vet school at that time. And like I said, Bruce got in his truck and came over and helped me. And that helped a lot. And I guess as a young kid, you see all those people who they're the Goliaths of the industry. And it's hard to go and talk to them as a young kid because they don't even know who you are from Adam. And so I was fortunate enough that I had a connection to Bruce. But some of the organizations that we have in the vet profession, the American Association of Bovine Practitioners, the AABP, the AVC, the Academy of Veterinary Consultants, on those websites, it's pretty simple. I can just go on there, and people who have already said, I want to be a mentor for the next generation of veterinarians, it helps break the ice, I guess, for me going to talk to those folks. And so I don't know if Montana Stock Growers or anybody has anything like that, but it sure helps us younger generation break the ice to go and talk to those folks, because my understanding is, yes, interest rates are high now, but the people who survived the 70s say they're not. And so going back to those topics that we were talking about earlier is, if young guys now can go and talk to those guys who survived that time and what they did, mentorship is all about not reinventing the wheel. And for me as a veterinarian, I was able to do that with help from my mentors from vet school and then Dr. Sorensen and folks like that. And it applies to our clients as well in mentoring in every industry. So that's just something I wanted to share and appreciate it.
Great suggestion. I think that one will be well thought of. Any others? So we're going to kind of start wrapping up here. Oh, come on down. While you're coming down, we're also going to make sure, has everyone got a chance to sign up for the vaccine cooler drawing? So be thinking about that if you haven't. We'll talk about that after your comments. And then the other thing is we're going to have 2 more questions on your iPhones. So start getting warmed up for that idea too, please.
What this this boils down to is this thing right here, producer profitability. If we can make some profit.
He is the mic that the people online can't hear.
We want everybody to hear you.
If we can make this livestock deal profitable and something we can sustain, the mentorship falls in, the labor stuff comes in to where we could give these kids a cut of the ranch instead of working our ass off just enough to stay afloat. If we're profitable and we can sustain being profitable, all the rest of this stuff will eventually help us out. Like Ed said, the estate deal, the tax is going to kill us all if we don't fix that. It's going to be a moot point. We're all going to be out of business because we won't be able to afford it, especially in Gallatin County and surrounding areas. So like I said, if we can make it profitable and we can sustain profit, we'll be all right. And I want to thank stock growers and the livestock people for starting this. This is something we should have done 15 years ago. But thanks, guys, for getting the ball rolling.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other comments? We're wanting to make sure everyone's comfortable to come forward because this is the one thing that we really cherish is we wanted to be able to make sure there was a good platform that literally was open, vulnerable, for people to come up and be able to and have their word spoken. Want to remind everybody, if you haven't said anything tonight, we can always make comments on the website at mtbeef.org. And I just can't emphasize enough, your feedback is going to be read, it is going to be considered, and it's very much a very important part of this entire process. And so, with that said, do we want to move forward with the drawing? We can do the questions first. Okay, so we need to get everybody geared back up on their phones. And I see you guys are getting logged in. We got eight going so far. So of the 5 areas of focus presented, please rank the most important to the least, one being the most important. So we're slowly coming in here so far. The first is a favorable tax climate. Second would be minimizing the barriers to entry for young producers. Third, the mentorship. Fourth, labor. And fifth, the government programs. 27 respondents so far. Great discussion on the mentorship and good feedback there. Really good thoughts. Has everybody pretty much got their answers in? For sure, it's a favorable tax climate. I mean, like you said, if we can't get this estate tax lined out, it is a big deal. Very much a high priority. And it has been a high priority. Just this political climate gets complicated. Okay, let's move to the second question. What topic from tonight's discussion did you find the most valuable? Okay, as they come in, mentorship, labor and mentorship, young producers, mentorship and estate tax, mentorship and opportunities for young producers was very helpful and thought-provoking. Ideas for increasing mentorship. The importance for the next generation, how to make, missed that one. Taxes, tax and labor. How important the next generation is for future of agriculture as a whole. H2A, young producers starting out. Taxes, mentorship, taxes, having the needs of young producers. Death tax, estate tax, emphasis to mentorship relationships, estate tax. Caution of utilizing government programs. How we go about making this industry appealing for the next generation to enter. Improving the estate tax exemptions for ag. Do we have one more question? Okay. All right, so this is our last question is how can MSGA and the producer profitability incentives serve you and your family's operation? Okay, so some of the answers coming in. Lobby to fix the tax issue. Create a mentorship network. Give hope to the future. Workshops on programs available. Lobby the death tax. Work on the estate taxes and profitability. Politically, eliminate the death tax altogether and not allow the government to take away a family's life work. Work towards a long-term market environment to ensure profitability for the future. Work with congressional delegation to eliminate or reduce estate tax liability. Provide a list of mentors in the industry on various topics. Make ranching more appealing and profitable in many different aspects, even legislation and representative. A program to help with a clear-cut succession planning to ensure the operation stays protected and passed down carefully. Sustainable profits not reliant on government assistance. Introduce legislation to reassess ag property classification and encourage grazing utilization. An advocate for policies that help operation longevity in the legislature. We'll wait a couple minutes or a couple seconds here for some others to come in. We really can't thank you all enough for taking the time to come tonight. We really were trying to figure out what is the best format to create common ground, to create a place for we can work together across all organizations. And we're trying our best to reach across and saying, hey, maybe you're not a member of Montana Stock Growers, maybe you're a member of another group, but we really do need to work together. Because the bottom line is, as we face the same blizzards, we face the same tax problems, we face all the same things, and we need to at least say, hey, you know what, there are some major topics here that our producers in our industry have to get fixed. And that's a really big directive that has come through our membership and saying, let's build a consortium. Let's work not only within all of the organizations within our state, but let's reach to the other states, which we've already started. We've reached all the other states around Montana. We've already started this conversation on the national level with other industries, as well as NCBA. Just mentioning, we had RCAF, we had Bill Bullard there, we had Jess Peterson with U.S. Cattlemen's. We are trying to be the point of the sword to talk about it and make a difference. And we want to make sure that we can make that difference with the real Montana farmers and ranchers. Joe Goggins will tell you the eyes are on Montana. We are plowing some new ground to really try to make a difference. We're saying, hey, you know what? We just don't want to fight like we did over the last 20 years. Let's just for a minute try something different, and let's really try to make a difference and really try to bring in all of the ideas. And that's really important. That's the only way we're going to make a difference. Could you imagine being our politician when you have all these different beef groups coming up there, and all of a sudden we're in an argument right in front of maybe Steve Dane's office? I mean, it's tough. And we have to try to fix that the best we possibly can. So the other thing I wanted to recognize is just look around in the room. We see young producers here. We see ranchers. We might see some ranchers with some gray hair. You know, we see sale barn owners. We see feed yard owners. We see lenders. And I know there's other industries in here that help with our industry. We're a big industry, folks, and we have to work together to get these issues resolved. And so we can't thank you enough on behalf of John and the rest of our officer team and everything. I mean, we are really trying to make the best effort here to really make a difference. John, any other comments?
Yeah, Turk, just very quickly, again, thanks for everybody. And again, we couldn't do this obviously without Steve and Brandon and everybody with the auction markets. But a couple of other things to tie on to what Turk was saying. You know, when we're having these meetings going around, we want anybody and everybody to feel welcome to come to these things, whether you're a Montana Stock Growers member, whether you're not, everybody's welcome here. I will say, going forward, keeping involved in these things, you're more up to date, you're more involved, you help us all if you're a member, if you join. Obviously, I would like all of you to be members of Montana Stock Growers Association. If for some reason you don't want to be or whatever, please at least participate locally. Join the Galton Beef Producers, join the Southwestern Montana Stock Growers, join your county farm bureau. Do something to be involved, because that's how you make your voice heard and have influence on these issues. And just a couple last things. You know, I asked earlier, like, if we had any representatives from our congressional delegation here. We do have Celia Rigler here from Governor Gianforte's office. It's great to have Celia here. We have a great relationship with she and with the governor. We're very fortunate to have that relationship. And Turk will probably say this, but we're going to the cooler. We depend on Western Ranch Supply for a lot of things. It's great that Shane and Keith and Holden and all those people are willing to put this together for us, so we really appreciate their help. This is somebody we know, Asher Malcolm.
Okay, we're just going to wrap up here. There again, we want to continue the conversation. We're going to be having this also over at Blake's sale barn here in the future as well. The whole schedule is on the website. Please encourage other producers to be involved. We really want everybody's feedback. Kenny or Ian or Heidi, do you have any thoughts or comments? Promote Dillon. Okay, we'll be at Dillon next Monday. So I know some of you are close to that area too, so please help spread the word. And hey, if we could do something better tonight or a better format, we want feedback. So, you know, we're not saying we got this all figured out either. So please even make that part of the comment. And we really appreciate everything. So with that, any other comments? Thank you. Okay, safe travels home. Thank you.